All right, thank you for the intro, Amanda. I have actually been thinking about this conversation for probably 2 weeks now, okay? These coaches, they have an idea of what I want to chat about, but as a podcast host, selfishly, I always have to think, how are you guys going to be able to take away as much from this conversation as possible? And first and foremost, this is an honor. This is so fun for me to be able to talk to two of my favorites. So as I mentioned earlier, I played in the Big Ten. I played against them. They were the scariest team in the Big Ten. They still are. And my sister, Christina, who's 4 years younger than me, actually technically 5, she played her senior season for them, which was your final year.
It was.
Your final year. So I hung out with the team all the time. Actually, no, I just hung out with them and, picked their brains as much as I could because I am also a coach and I want to learn as much as possible from them, and I already have, and I can't wait for you guys to learn from them as well. So to start us off, I actually want to know, how was practice today, Bonnie?
Practice was pretty darn good. So we're practicing 6 days a week right now, and our very first game is the first week of February, so it's right around the corner. So yesterday, as we parted practice, I asked the group, because I think that there's a whole key element to ownership and being aware of where we are in our game. I asked them to grade our team as to how we practiced yesterday. And we had a good practice yesterday, and they graded us a solid B, right? And we came back today, and I believe that you have to start practice every single day with a message. You have to come with a message, and some days it's the same message as it was yesterday, and some days it's a little bit different. And we elevated our class score and our class grade today. We were above a solid B. And were we perfect? Nope, we're not. We are not expecting to be perfect. We always say that we want to pursue perfection, and so practice was good today. It was a B plus, A minus.
Hey, that's great. As a college athlete myself, I know most days it probably felt like we were a C or a D, but no, that's great. And honestly, I think why I wanted to start with this is because we're not going to have A days every day. You guys know that. Obviously, you've been coaching for some time and have seen all the things. You probably could have asked that question last December, and they all give you, yeah, we're an F. But is it weird how sometimes they perceive practice differently than you?
Yeah, I think that how we measure success is different. As coaches, we have certain things that we want to accomplish, and I think the most successful teams is when you have players and leaders like I have that were sitting up here. They happen to be our 2 captains this year, Ella and Lily. And when the coach's intent and viewpoint is closely matching what the leaders of the team, what they see, because they keep a pulse on the locker room. They understand the needs of their teammates. And so oftentimes we're at different ends. But I'm going to tell you what, and this is just a great example of a team being on the same page. And I'm not sure if I ever told Ella and Lily this, but we have a captain vote, and it's not just the players, but it's the coaching staff as well. And exactly how our team voted for those 2 sitting up here is exactly how the coaches would have voted. We did not even have to submit our votes, and that's a really good sign.
That's a great sign. Everybody seems to be having the same pulse. That's incredible. One more thing that I wanted to ask is, when you have leaders and you choose leaders for your team, and obviously I love that you have the team choose because they see leadership in each other. What type of, we talk about mental skills and we haven't dove a ton into it yet, but we will. What do you see from them that just shines, that you're like, they need to be the captain?
Well, I think it's their ability to recognize their status on the team. And I 100% believe that leadership is not because of an age. I'm a senior versus a freshman. I think that every single person in this room, regardless if you just came on your team or if you've been on your team for a long time, has the ability to lead and has the opportunity to lead. And it may be in different ways, and it's what the needs of your coach is, what the needs of your team is, and it falls within the needs of your own personality. And so I think the skills that captains at Michigan that we have had over the years are people who understand that this is about the big picture, right? And I say this to the team all the time, and it's going to be a broken record, but you all chose the sport. I'm assuming that all of you guys are softball players, and maybe you don't play softball, you play another sport. But for those of us who play softball, we all chose a team sport. So which means that often, and most of the times, we have to think of the group and others before we think of our own self. And I think that's what a true leader does. They serve the program, they serve the mission, they serve each other, and that's what makes them great leaders.
Incredible. Hutch, I have been dying to ask you this question simply because as someone who's competed against you, how the heck has Michigan just had that aura where when you see Michigan softball and coaches respectively, you get a little scared? Like, why was I on the field looking at you at third base and just going, oh, breathe, Ashley? Like, practicing these mental skills because you guys have such a dominant culture and have had it for so long. What brought that aura, you think? You knew we were thinking this, right?
I've gotten a wind of that over the years. Many a former opponent or colleague has said, sometimes you guys won the game when you walked in the door. Now, first of all, that's not what is makes you win the game, all right? Because it gives a lot of people what they need when they're facing somebody that's the favored. It gives them the edge because they're not favored. They have nothing to lose. And a lot of times Michigan would walk in, and my own kids, sometimes influenced by people outside of our program, would think, we're supposed to win this game. We're supposed to beat Purdue. And you know what? That's like carrying around all those balloons full of pressure. And there's no shoulds and there's no supposed tos. But our kids, we trained really hard. And one of the things I learned over all the hundreds of years that I coached was that in practice, if we don't push them to failure, they're not going to know how to experience failure, which happens every game. People swing and miss. Pitchers throw up home runs. Mistakes happen. It's part of the game. And so we have to train at the level where you fall down and you get up unfazed. And our team would be unfazed walking into competition because we learned that practice had to be way harder than the game, way faster paced than the game, and we had to fail. And you don't fail, but you don't always have success. And the success you're looking for is if you not just focus on your momentary outcome, and it's a collective. But I think that's how we asserted dominance, was we trained really hard in the most important area, which was responding to failure.
Now, there are a lot of coaches here, raise your hand, coaches that are, trying to make your programs as dominant as you can. Can you share just a few of the ways that you can think of where you were practicing that failure piece? Like, did you have a certain cage where you're like, they're going to struggle, and like that was the plan?
Oh, that's my favorite drill.
Which one? What is it? What is it?
The struggle cage. Well, we would simply create instances. For instance, one of the toughest drills we ever did was we would take all of our pitchers. At the time, maybe we had 3 or 4 pitchers. I think we carry more nowadays. And they'd all stand on the mound. We'd be in scrimmage format, and they get to throw one pitch. So maybe the first pitcher would come up, and she'd throw a rise ball, and it was a ball. Ball. So when pitcher number 2 comes up and has to throw the next pitch, she throws a screwball, strike, 1-1 count. The next pitcher comes in and has to, and they would basically, without getting into a groove of their own, setting up their own rhythm, their own at-bats, have to throw these pitches that became meaningful, especially when the 3 pitchers in front of you went 3-0. And it was really difficult. And they said, I hate this. Good. But sometimes, or we would take away in a scrimmage format their best pitch. You can throw you can throw anything you want in the scrimmage, but you can't throw your best pitch, which is your curveball or your changeup, which made it much harder for them. And same with batters. You only get to have one strike. In a bunting drill, you only get one attempt. The good news is in a game, you can get up to 3 attempts. So we just made everything. We took away some of their things that would make the game more normal and easier so that it would be harder in practice.
Were there a lot of 21 outs played?
We played our share of 21 outs, and really my favorite thing to do, as in 21 outs, is you have to create situations where you get up to the numbers, so up to 21, and on number 19, if there's a mistake, which I like to champion mistakes, but if we don't catch and throw properly, you have to start over and go back to 1. And what does that create? Start overs, do-overs? It creates frustration. It creates building up the pressure they feel in the game as they get closer to getting to success, closer to getting to 21. And watching them have to recover, and usually when they failed and had to start over a few times, I would wait and say, maybe you need to get together and remind the leaders, get the group together and tell them, let's go, we can do this, we got this. Let's beat them. Let's beat her. I'd like to create that in practice.
When you said champion mistakes, you both can answer this however you would choose, but champion mistakes, like, what can we talk about what that is? Because I think a lot of coaches that I've had, some are very good at championing mistakes. They're like, we want you to make mistakes so you can, like you said, get up. But many are in the boat of like, oh, you made a mistake, here's a punishment. Or here's a mistake, and now they're afraid to make mistakes. Like they immediately get pulled. And you don't want an athlete to feel scared. No coach does. But what are scenarios where you are championing a mistake in practice or games or any situation?
Sure. Off the top of my head, I can think of a couple today. We were in a scrimmage format, and our identity that we want at the plate offensively starts with aggressiveness. We want to take aggressive swings. We want to have aggressive mindset, which obviously the only way you take aggressive swings is if you have an aggressive mindset, which is what this is all about, right? I saw plenty of swings today early in the count on hittable pitches that were swings that we missed the ball, we missed the pitch, but we went for it. And I will take that any day of the week because, one, I believe in the athleticism of my players, and two, I can always scale back somebody who's being over-aggressive, but I can't really ramp up a passive player to be aggressive, right? And so I want them to we say it often, you're going to make aggressive mistakes. We're going to make mistakes. I want it to be an aggressive mistake. I want it to be a mistake where you are just unleashing the ball from the outfield and going for it to throw that runner out at the plate versus throw 75% of your ability because you're afraid that the ball will go elsewhere. So those are just a couple of examples that we want you to make an aggressive mistake. Obviously, we'd like to play error-free ball and mistake-free ball, but again, that's not the world we live in. It's not the game that we live in and play.
I remember being told by my coach, I love to steal bases. That was like my favorite thing on the field was just get on. I love to steal. And I remember my coach saying, always err on the side of aggressiveness. So it was same format. It was, I think if I left the base, I'm going to tell everybody my secret, but I probably left this much early and nobody knew. And if they called me out, they were right, but I was only called out probably once out of every 10 attempts. And I was safe most of the time. So that is, a really great mindset to have is like, why not go all out and see what you can get?
Absolutely. And I'll let Hutch answer because I know she has something here. But to that point, we like to say, run till the defense stops you, right? Does that mean that you run careless? No, but we're going to run until the defense stops us because we believe in what we can do on the base path.
And make sure you run with your head up. Always know where the ball is. When you're running, you need to know where the ball is. If you're not making mistakes in practice, you're not pushing your edge, and you're never going to get better. You're never going to figure out what your boundaries are. I like to say, and to quote a very famous coach, John Wooden, and if you don't know who that is, Google it when you leave. He's probably one of the greatest coaches ever in any sport. Be quick, don't hurry. And so as we like to push our kids into that fast-paced practice where they're going to be hurried or rushed, which is what causes mistakes. And you have to be able to slow that game down in your mind as you get to the outfield fence and you know you have to hit a relay who's got to throw them out at the plate. You have to be able to keep your wits about you as you move quick. And moving quick and rushing are two different things. So we want to push them into that area so they learn the difference. But if I'm watching basketball practice and they're sprinting up and down the court, passing the ball and throwing it out of bounds, and they're figuring out how fast they can run the fast break and how fast can they hustle up and down the court and still control the game. That's what you learn in practice. Learn and grow from the mistakes you make, and don't beat yourself up over them.
So last year was a fun year for Michigan softball. We won the Big Ten championship. Since my sister had played there, she rushed home from her last game to make sure she was watching the championship game. It was a super just fun series, and I was there to witness a lot of it, which was really awesome. I'm curious, Bonnie, from that year, there had to have been highs and lows, right? And even the games that you were playing, there were a lot of highs and lows. But can you think of some of those, tough, gritty moments of the year that allowed you guys to catapult that trophy by the end, that were necessary in order to find that championship?
Well, it ends up being a theme for us, but I wholeheartedly believe it, and I've said this plenty of times over the past 3 or 4 years, is, we all in our life, we all want to be millionaires. And I'm talking to a lot of the young people in the room. That might not be what you aspire to be, but that would be kind of fun, right? It would be fun to be a millionaire. But how you become a millionaire isn't you just one day come across a whole bunch of money and you put it in your bank account. No, you fill that account little by little, and you're diligent, and you fill that account, and you make those deposits. And it's no different than you give to your team, you work relentlessly with your teammates, and those are the deposits. And the payoff might not be evident. It might not be next month, okay? To become a millionaire, it takes years, right? So what I said to the team is that we're going to make deposits. We're going to deposit in each other. We're going to invest in each other. We're going to invest in the game. And we may not see the payoff right away. And we did have those moments in the month of April last year. We had 3 tough series that I can think of where we were ahead in games, didn't come out on top. It just didn't go the way we wanted. And we weren't getting our return on investment at that time. But we stayed with it. We kept investing in each other. We kept believing that what we were doing to fill our accounts was going to pay off. And you saw it at the end of the year. The payout was big. We became millionaires at the end of that year. And I think that's critical because we live in a time where you all grew up with instant messaging from your friends, or you got instant response, okay? There's a whole bunch of patience and diligence that need to occur. And I'm only saying that for your own purpose. You have to see things through, you have to remain patient, and you have to just 100% believe that the deposits and the work that you're putting in is going to pay off. It'll pay off when you need it most.
So I'm curious, you're obviously right next to the athletes as they're, let's say, just going through the Big Ten championship game. what are the things that you're hearing in the dugout from the players? Like, what are they saying to get themselves going? And, what are some players even saying in the box? Like, do you know what they're thinking?
Well, I'll tell you what, I think this happened, it happened ahead of time, and I saw the momentum build, and it was month and a half long of resilience of, as Hutch just described, being knocked down, but 100% believing in their resilience that they can get the job done. And I don't ever remember that whole week hearing disbelief. It was, this is what we were going to do. And I will 100%, I'm not taking credit for it, but I understand as a leader I have to direct and I have to make sure that the message is clear. And if you look at our pitching staff, I brought them aside and I said, Dirk, you're going to start every game. And you're going to go as long as you can for as hard as you can. And Dirk, when you can't go any longer, Aaron, you're coming in and you're going to close the game. And this is how we're going to go. We're going to go Dirk and Aaron, and that's what we're going to do. And I think it was really direct to them, and they understood the message. And I watched the rest of the team keep that same vision and directness and approach the entire week.
And that clarity is, addictive. It's like
Yes.
you need that in order to be your best on the field. Before we wrap up, I wish I could talk to you guys for like 2 hours. Don't you guys wish we could talk for 2 hours? I have to bring up a player that Hutch loves talking about for a good reason, Amanda Chidester. When you came on the podcast, you had talked about how she went through this very tough time where she didn't make Team USA, and she was on the Olympic team in 2021 technically. And you know that story so well, and I feel like I would be remiss if I don't ask you, what was she saying to you in those moments, and what was that journey like for her? Because she was a stud, a star at Michigan, played professionally, and then ended up, winning a silver medal in the Olympics.
Well, if you don't know who Amanda Chidester is, she's from Allen Park, Michigan, and graduated in 2012. She was two-time Big Ten Player of the Year, two-time All-American, played in the College World Series. And when she left Michigan, she went right into the USA softball pool of candidates to become an Olympian when it's an Olympic year. And she played and made every year, she made the national team, the highest level team. They have different level teams, national team, elite team, A team, B team. And she made it every year. And she worked, I thought she worked hard in college, but wow. I saw her go to a whole new level of fitness and with that mental edge and mentality. And if there's one thing I learned from Amanda Chidester during this process watching her was the only one in the world who cares about your success. Not that you're the one who cares, but nobody cares more than you, and only you can own your success. So in this story, the next to last tryout of the final go for the 2020 Olympics was in 2019, and Amanda got cut from the national team. She got demoted down to one of the lower levels, which was a big, wow, I'm probably not going to be on the Olympic team. And I called her, and she was mad. And she was mad at the coaches. Everybody loves to be mad at the coaches. She was mad at the Olympic Selection Committee, and she was mad at the Olympic selection process. And I said, okay, I'll just call you back. So I called her a few days later, and she had calmed down. She goes, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to take a job. People were already offering her jobs to coach at college. I got one more year. I've got one more shot. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to find out what I need to do, and I'm going to go do it. I said, I support you. Let's go. And she trained even harder. And the moral of the story isn't that she called me and said, I made the team. That was awesome. She worked really hard. A lot of people do. Everybody works hard. The clincher and the whole moral of the story is any one of you in this room would do what she did if you knew it was going to work. If you knew, if I do this, and this, I'm going to make the team. And she had no control whether she made the team. Same coaches, same Olympic selection committee, same process. And she did make it, but a lot of people maybe don't. But the question is, are you willing to do what it takes, and nobody ever gets to know the final outcome? You don't get to know it. And so many young athletes don't own that you're the one who has to go do it, and you're the one who has to leave that land of, I know what works, I'm comfortable. Whether your coach says, let's try fiddling with your stance. Let's try doing this with your throw to second. Let's fiddle with it. Maybe we can make it better. Well, it's not comfortable. I don't know if it'll work. I tried it. It didn't work. You can't try it one time or one day. You have to give in to, I am going to go for it. You have to jump in, all feet in. And that's what she did. And it taught me a lot about what ownership really looks like, because she owned all of it. And all of you own where you go on this journey, what you do with your mentality. Only you can own it. You have to commit to it, and you have to commit all in.
Before we hop off this stage, is there any message you want to give to the athlete, the coach here, from a mentality standpoint of this is what it takes? Again, you kind of have to dive in before you even realize if it's going to work, but any final thoughts on this message?
Well, I do. I have one final thought, and I'm looking at this room, and maybe it's more for the coaches and parents, but a show of hands in this room. How many of you know who Michael Jordan is? Wow, awesome. Okay. So Michael Jordan missed 51% of game-clinching shots on the basketball court. He missed 51% of game-clinching shots. Okay? He kept taking those shots. And I'm going to say that he was a confident individual. He was talented, confident. Keep taking your shot, because confidence isn't in knowing what the outcome is. Confidence is knowing that you control how you respond to the outcome. And that will serve you well, not just as an athlete. It will serve you in anything you do as you get older in life, right? You control how you respond to the outcome, whether you made the shot or not, whether you hit the ball or not. That's what I have.
I was asked just recently, of all the great players I've coached, we've had 70 All-Americans at Michigan. We've had some really great players. I learned everything I know from them. But what's the difference? What separates them? What sets them apart? And it's mentality. Some of them didn't have as much talent as some of the more talented kids who didn't become All-Americans. Your mentality is without a doubt, and it has to go back to your confidence is related to your level of comfort with failing. And when you go out and lift the bar until you can't lift it anymore, that's how you build strength. And you push yourself until you don't do it right, and then you know your boundaries. But you have to be comfortable that it's not always going to go your way. But the ability to get back up and keep fighting is what is going to make the difference for you. So good luck.
This has been a dream. Thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause for hanging out with us.